But no pressure. This is good. This is a good group. This is a safe group.
Yeah.
You guys look safe. Yeah, so just like to give you some context of like the work that's here. All of this work was in a solo show in Los Angeles called Places and Spaces. So like, and it wasn't, so some of the work is literally about literal places, but it's extractions from those environments. So it's not just like, I'm not making like a landscape about a specific place per se, and it also might be like spaces in my mind or places in my mind, like more enigmatic. But so it might help to talk about a specific piece, but if you look at the actual titles of the pieces, they'll give you like some insight about the concepts of the pieces or like where they came from. So if you actually read the titles, but so like this piece, for instance, I think this is a good one just to like talk about, just so we can zero in on one. This piece is called Divisadero Ice Plants. And so this piece was actually made on Divisadero in Haight. So when I was like living there and I was just subletting a piece, a place, not a piece, but trying to give you like some good context on the piece. So like at this time I was like going through some uncoupling in a relationship, like a 12-year relationship. So I was like kind of hitting the reset button, not trying to get too personal here, but it is interesting context. So like I was thinking about the ice plant in particular because they plant ice plants everywhere to stop erosion, and I just thought it was kind of like the perfect metaphor for kind of what was going on in my life at that time. And I was spending a lot of time like cold soaking and stuff. Yeah, exactly. trying to move on and like go on to the next part of my life. So that was kind of like where I was at with that painting in particular. So like the tonalities, stuff like that was. Does everyone know what ice plants are here? I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I was talking to someone earlier. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know.
And so like I didn't assume that everyone knows, but anyway, so like you probably recognize the colors and stuff. So this would have been like at the winter kind of time era. But I was looking at like the triangularities of the ice plants themselves. The speckling of the canvas was like representative of like the sand and stuff like that. But also just like thinking about how much of the painting needed to be painted for it to hold its own. Like how much information needs to be there and not information. Like very different than the piece behind Bettina, where like everything is covered. Like there's no negative space at all. There's no like there's no window into the birthplace of the canvas where it started. So like that's like very different. And that's actually the earliest painting in here. And that painting is titled Artemisia California 2. So a lot of times I'll like paint two paintings at the same time, and that just translates into Russian sagebrush, like in Latin. But I was literally just like looking at sage and driving. I think I was actually on a road trip with you maybe. So me and Avita actually used to live together in Yosemite. So like a lot of these are like kind of informed by California or the Pacific Ocean. This is more like, that title is Iowa Valley Aopu fish, which is this fish that comes from the ocean and then it comes upstream and goes into natural water and actually can climb up waterfalls, which is pretty astounding. And I've like fished my whole life. I'm just like obsessed with fish. So I'd spend a lot of time like looking at those fish. And then these ones over here are a little harder to talk about because they really are. Like one of them is called Imaginary Places and then one of them is called Imaginary Spaces. So those ones are a little more enigmatic as far as like what I was thinking about. It's harder to like put my finger on it exactly. But I was thinking about architecture and just these forms being like actual spaces that I could exist in. I was talking to Peyton earlier about Arakawa, which is a very esoteric architect, Japanese architect, but some of his concepts in his architecture was making architecture that made you had to work to move through the space. And the ideology was kind of that it would make you live longer, that type of stuff. So I wasn't really channeling Arakawa by any means, but I was kind of thinking about some of his structures. I also grew up skateboarding and like spent a lot of time in water in general. And those forms, I was thinking about bird's eye views of like beach umbrellas, and just like using that as like something to abstract like further. But other than that, I think I gave you a lot of different types of things, so maybe open it up for questions, and we could talk about.
So you kind of work from a formula, it feels like, where you assign something, a color to a zone, and then you map it out based on that formula.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of?
yeah. Well, it can also.
In this one.
Yeah. It can also be really deceiving because, like, you might look at it like the whole like piece is mapped out, but part of the fun for me is not knowing how the painting will resolve. So it's like more like jazz music to me, kind of like as far as like improvisation. Like you might like have things in your Rolodex or in your like box that you could pull out like accidentals and stuff, but ultimately you're searching for something you don't know what's going to happen. But there is like formulas, so like I will start with graph paper and I know like the structure kind of, but I don't exactly know how the tonalities are going to resolve. And like that's the part that's a little harder to see because they look so like planned that you might think everything, but for me it was like if I knew everything, then I'd be like, what's the point of making the painting? Kind of. Another thing I didn't really talk about is like making the surfaces that float, so they're kind of a hybrid of like a painting and an object and a sculpture. So that's another thing I'm trying to like bring into the work is like that kind of conversation.
So what would have been an improv on that?
So yeah, it's hard to say, but probably some of the color selections.
Okay.
Yeah, so how some of the color selections resolved, and even like, you know, like when I started the painting, I might not have known like all of that was just going to be raw canvas. So like, but like that's something when you're painting, the painting's talking to you and you're talking to the painting. So you have to also listen to what the painting wants, if that makes any sense. So like that's something I try to be conscious of when I'm working. So that's kind of where that comes from. I think it's hard to explain, but it's a good question. Yeah, but good question. If no one has any other questions, it's okay too.
What's your time frame from an idea to sketching to actually bring it to canvas?
Right. Yeah. So that's something too that you don't realize is like all of these surfaces are made from wood and like all the carpentry work I do it all by hand myself. Like even that is like a very laborious task. So like
These are heavy.
and they're heavy and they're like they're made to sustain time. They are heavy.
Roommate says yes. I have to schlep down.
Yeah. They are heavy. They're solid. But it depends, Peyton, as far as like exactly how long. It just depends, kind of what I'm cooking up. But usually I always work on things in series. So like if I'm gonna like make a painting, I have multiple going on because I just find that they inform the other paintings, and I might get an idea in one that I can investigate in another one, and it just, for me, it makes the experience more, not necessarily cohesive, but
Do you pull a plug on one of the pieces, say, okay, I hit the wall. There's no
like this sucks.
It sucks. Yeah.
No, honestly, not. I almost never do that. Like that sounds kind of weird, but like I almost never. Yeah, I'm just like, this is a disaster. Like usually I couldn't tell you the last time that happened. So.
So I was thinking about skateboarding and surfaces.
Yep.
And how much that informs your work. Because you've
Yeah.
got very,
Surfaces, yeah.
I mean,
Well, another thing, like just you bringing that up makes me think of like, I'm sure somebody in here knows people that skateboard or has a son or relatives or whatever, but you might be walking around with someone and they're like looking at the curb or like looking at someone's driveway and you're like, what are they doing? But we're just like looking at things in a different way too, like angles, and so like that is something that definitely creeps into my work, and even like me thinking about what's going on in the paintings. Yeah.
Your umbrellas, I would not see them as umbrellas. I see them as rectangular, three-dimensional boxes with different colors.
Yeah.
Now that you said umbrella, I'm like, duh.
Yeah,
I'm totally like,
yeah. And honestly, I purposely make paintings too where they're not like fixed. So like, I haven't seen these paintings in like 2 years, me personally, and like even me looking at them now, I have different ideas about them. So like they change. My ideas about them change.
they're moving when I leave here.
It might
and
just
then
be
they
the
come
one.
back and
I'm just kidding. No. They are very like perceptual in that sense too, but like also skateboarding growing up, like very bright graphics on boards and stuff. Those very saturated colors. It could be because I'm an 80s baby too. It was like that era, very like, you know, bright colors, 90s. So I'm sure in video games, like playing, you know, I'm sure that creeps into the work, but.
they feel very playful. So
Yeah.
both of the things you just mentioned, very dynamic, but very playful.
And they definitely are. And I like playing games. Like I like playing poker. I like playing chess. I'm not as good at chess as this guy, but like always thinking about like things moving and like different scenarios. And there is like something in my work like that where I'm constantly, like this painting could have resolved itself in a million different ways. It just happened to resolve itself like that. And if I painted that same painting next week, it would be a different painting. I'm sure it would resolve differently.
How do you know when you're done?
Yeah, so that's a hard thing to say, but for me it's more of an intuition, more of like a feeling. Like I might have an idea going into a painting, how I think it's going to resolve, and then I might get there and then just be like something's missing. Like I thought it would be done, but the painting again is telling me like I need to investigate something further. So it's more of an intuitive thing, like breathing or like eating. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but yeah, more of a feeling. Yeah, more of a feeling. Good questions.
I'm just curious
Yeah.
about that one block of green that isn't a triangle.
This guy?
Yeah, like you have three
Yeah.
shapes in that one, but it's all the same color. Was that like a breakthrough, or was there like some sort of resolution? Or?
So like this trapezoidal shape.
Yeah.
So just like why is that like different than the other ones? Is that
Well,
what you
I
mean?
know that you were going through
Yeah.
an emotional time.
Yeah, sure.
But was that like something that resolved, or is there symbolism to this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more like I can like see. I mean, it's hard to say, but just like I see more of like how I was feeling at that time with like the colors and tonalities, and even like, something being not totally resolved in the way that you thought it would be. Like maybe that was like some of the turbulence that I was experiencing or not knowing, but like. Sometimes I think knowing is an overrated concept too. Like to live to know everything is kind of boring. So it's like, so I was also celebrating that part of my life, I think too. And I was kind of excited for what was next. I don't know if that really answers your question. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to like say exactly, to be honest. Like,
So you seem to be attracted to angular shapes with straight lines,
Uh-huh.
opposed to rounded curves or
yeah.
flowing shapes. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I don't know. I think it just feels good. But if you look at my newer work now, like there is a lot more curves. So if you just look at the whole repertoire of my work over the last like 20 years or more, like I see a lot of things where it informs different works. Like these are just my paintings. I also do like whole scale like room installations and stuff. And so some of that work I can see like where it might be like thousands of strings or something. And like I can see like some of the conversations of past work, how it kind of informs different parts, or like I might be dealing with something for several years and then I leave something aside, but then it starts creeping in again. Like after 5 years, I'm returning to something that I'm like, I was doing that like 10 years ago. So it's kind of hard to like, it's weird how the brain works and, but it happens. But like at this time, I was investigating these like structures. Like that's like a tessellation pattern based on a like a 5-sided pentagon.
Yeah.
So that's just repeated. And like for whatever reason, I was just interested in how that shape tessellated.
Okay.
But like so
What
just
does tessellate mean?
it's just a pattern.
Okay.
A pattern. Yeah, tessellation.
Same pattern.
Yeah.
Like Hampshire.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tessellation.
Same shape over and over again.
Yeah, and some tessellations you can fold and they're symmetrical, and some you fold and they're not symmetrical. Like this one, if you folded it, it wouldn't be symmetrical. But yeah, I don't want to put you guys to sleep. These are all really
I
good questions.
have a burning
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Do you ever talk to groups of young skateboarders about your art?
All the time when I skateboard. I still
But you
skateboard.
don't, you
My
have your
niece-
paintings with you, but you don't see them.
I haven't done that, but I do. I teach. So I do teach college. So they're not really kids per se, but I think when you're in college, you think you're older than you are. Like I see myself when I'm. It's like when you're 20 or 18, 19, like you.
Or 60.
Yeah, or whatever, or 60. Yeah, exactly. It never stops. Like you think you have everything figured out, but it's always a work in progress.
Do you skateboard in class?
No, I don't. I still skateboard though, but my knees don't feel the same. But yeah, I should talk to young skateboard kids
Oh, yeah,
more.
there's a lot of skateboarders.
Well, I mean, you said as a skateboarder, you're constantly like looking at angles, and I guess
Yeah.
you would be looking at things differently because you're
Yeah.
like, can I skate on that?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
Can I skate around that? And I noticed living, you know, just because I have a couple of your pieces that I've lived with and loved for a long time,
Yeah.
that it's when you said that, I thought, yes, you have to do that with your pieces, especially the ones where, so this one's out, but some of them you've got reflections that you
Oh yeah,
really
behind it.
thought
Yeah, like
about.
one of the ones you have. Yeah, where I
Yeah,
paint
that
the back
you
of
thought
it.
about
Yeah.
what that's going to look like on the wall, so that whoever's looking at it needs to go up and be like, what's going on here? And then you kind of come around the other side, and it's not the same thing that's going on
Yeah.
on the other side. So when you were talking about how you look at the world when you're a skater, I have definitely a recognition of, oh yeah, when you walk past, you kind of, you're always kind of like, what's going, how's the light hitting
Yeah.
it today? What reflection is it making?
Yeah, you bring up a good point too. So like very rarely do you just look at a painting from one direction, right? Like that seems kind of silly because like if you live with a painting, you might be eating cereal, like looking at it, or you might be going to sleep on the couch and the painting's still there. So you have a different relationship, different lighting. And so I do think about that too, as far as like paintings that I do want to like make paintings that people want to move around and they want to like look at it from different angles. Just because I think that's part of the, like I was saying, these pieces are a hybrid. They're not just paintings to me anyway.
That's why I think it is a sculpture too.
Yeah, that's a good observation too. So. Well, thanks for your guys' time. If you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one too, like more informally. If not, I won't be offended. I appreciate your time and thanks for coming to the event. So, thank you very much. Yeah.